Today, we'll be discussing about the different types of companies in Estonia. The first type of company is private limited company. The private limited company is the most common form of business entity adopted by e-residents to set up their company in Estonia. There are around 21,000 businesses that are registered by e-residents in Estonia, and more than 99% of these businesses have been opened in the form of a private limited company. Compared to other forms of businesses, a private limited company is the most suitable form of business entity for the e-residents in Estonia. The major reasons for the adoption of a private limited company are simple registration procedure. The registration procedure is very simple and straightforward, and all the processes can be done online. Second reason, lower share capital requirement. A private limited company in Estonia can be incorporated with a low share capital of 2,500 euros. There is no cap on the maximum number of share capital. This share capital can be non-monetary also. Third reason, requirement of founder directors. The minimum requirement of directors at the time of incorporation of a private limited company is 1. These companies can operate with a single management board member too. A local or a foreign company can also become a founder and shareholder of the company. Fourth reason, financial stability. The shareholders of the company are not personally liable for the obligations and debts of the company. Due to these reasons, private limited companies are suitable for solopreneurs because these companies can be registered with a single shareholder. It has been observed that most of these companies have only 1 to 2 employees. The company is also required to open a bank account where money will be deposited for the share capital of the company after the registration of the company. The business bank account can be opened at any EEA zone bank account or any payment institution. There is an alternative provided by the commercial code. If the company is registered at the e-business register, the share capital can be deposited in the court's escrow account. The company has the option to voluntarily register for VAT or obtain the VAT registration if the annual taxable turnover exceeds the amount of 40,000 euros. It is mandatory for all the founding members to have an e-residency card at the time of incorporation of the company. The company needs to apply for an activity license too if it engages in a government regulated industry. The second type of company, public limited company. A public limited company is a type of business entity which can offer its securities to the general public and foreign investors. The shareholders of these companies have the liability limited to the amount of share contribution in the company. Due to the high entry barriers such as high incorporation costs, these types of companies are not the most common form of business entity adopted to do business in Estonia. A public limited company in Estonia cannot be registered without an authorized signatory. An applicant cannot simply register a public limited company itself with just an EID card. A resident board member is required to register a public limited company. Registration of a public limited company in Estonia requires a physical visit to the notary. The minimum share capital required to register a public limited company is 25,000 euros. It is governed by a shareholders general meeting and its management is taken care by the supervisory board consisting of at least 3 members who are elected by the shareholders of the company. A minimum of 1 founder is required for its incorporation. Further, an auditor is also required to be appointed at the time of its incorporation. Where the turnover of a public limited company exceeds 40,000 euros in Estonia or 10,000 euros in other EU states, then the company has to obtain VAT registration. The company is also required to obtain an activity license or give notice that the company is working in a government regulated industry. The company has to acquire a notice from a bank or payment institution about the contribution of the share capital. Third type of company is sole proprietorship. The adoption of the vehicle of sole proprietorship is not a very common form of business entity adopted by companies in Estonia and by e-residents. The reason being that a sole proprietorship is not considered as a separate legal entity in the eyes of law. The goods and services are sold in the name of the resident and not in the name of a separate legal person, making the e-resident personally liable for the consequences arising from their activities. Moreover, the taxation system for a sole proprietorship is also relatively complex and expensive, and therefore it is not advisable to adopt a business vehicle of a sole proprietorship. Though it can be a great vehicle for individuals such as freelancers and family members who are engaged in family-owned restaurants. The minimum share capital required to set up a sole proprietorship in Estonia is more than 0 euros. It requires a minimum of 1 person to start a sole proprietorship. Further, another great disadvantage in the adoption of a business vehicle of sole proprietorship is that the proprietor has unlimited liability arising from the debts and obligations of the business. It is very easy to incorporate a sole proprietorship as it requires very few documents. The founder can set up a proprietorship using his or her e-residency card at a notary or through a service provider using a power of attorney. Similar to other businesses, if the annual turnover of the proprietorship crosses 40,000 euros, it has to obtain VAT registration. The fourth type of company is general partnerships and limited liability partnerships. These types of businesses are not very common among e-residents despite there being a quick and easy procedure to establish these partnerships. Both these entities can be formed electronically using the e-residency card or through a service provider using a power of attorney. Where the partnerships are being formed using the identity cards of the founders need to have an e-residency card with them. The difference between these two lie in the extent of liability the partners have against the debts and liabilities of the partnership. The fifth type of company is commercial associations, where the purpose of the company is to support the economic interests of its members through a joint economic activity. The business vehicle of a commercial association can be adopted. There is no minimum share capital requirement for setting up a commercial association in Estonia. There should be a minimum of 2 founders to register a commercial association. Here, the partners do not have personal financial liability unless agreed otherwise. There are other alternatives available with the foreign companies wanting to establish a business in Estonia in the form of a branch office and a non-profit organization. So let us talk about the sixth type of company, that is the branch office. If there is an existing foreign company wanting to sell goods and services to the Estonian market under the company's name on a permanent basis, there is an option to register a company in the form of a branch. It must be noted that a branch is not a separate business entity distinct from its parent company. Instead, the foreign enterprise is liable in Estonia for all the obligations arising from the activities of the branch office. A branch office is supposed to be registered with the Estonian Business Register. A foreign company is allowed to set up only one branch office in Estonia. The application is supposed to be made to a notary and all the documents are required to be translated into Estonian by a sworn translator. In some cases, the documents may also be required to be apostilled or legalized depending on the origin of the documents. The counting of the branch office shall be done separately from the head office and according to the Estonian standards. Additionally, all the requirements of the VAT registration will be applicable to the branch office as they are applicable to other entities. The seventh type of company, non-profit organizations. A non-profit organization is an association of 2 or more persons that are carrying out their activities towards non-profit objectives. For more such content, please share and subscribe to the channel.